convicted full-time burglar, made a prison break. He lasted 3 weeks on the run, got as far as the next day. So they brought him back and sentenced him to 15 years of hell. Sent him to the shoe at Pelican Bay in a solitary cell.
Today I'm talking with Peter Case, who left New York in the early 70s, headed to San Francisco, and honed his craft as a street musician. He then became a frontman of the Nerves, soon to become a force on the LA rock scene. He formed the Plimsouls, who had a huge hit with A Million Miles Away, and since releasing his first critically acclaimed solo record, Peter has enjoyed a very successful career. Stay tuned as we talk about all of this and his great new album, My Life to Live, Peter Case at McCabe's.
80,000 in solitary and a hunger strike on Pelican Bay. Well, day and night, fluorescent light, no window for the sun. They shove your food in through a slot so you never see no
one. Welcome to Frets with DJ Fey, the place to hear great music and interviews with fantastic musicians. Stay tuned. Well, Peter Case, how are you?
I'm great, man. How are you doing today? I'm
Good.
doing all right. I'm out here on the road, and start another tour. So I'm high hopes and high spirits, pretty much. Except it's pouring rain out here, and
oh no,
kind of grim. But
well, first of all, I want to wish you a belated happy birthday.
Thanks a lot, man. Yeah, 72, huh?
Your birthday's 5 days ahead of mine, so I got one coming up too.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Are you from 1954 too?
I am from 1958, so you got just a few,
Okay,
not
all right.
much, few years on me.
Yeah. 50s.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this today.
No, you're welcome, man. My pleasure.
I think you're from Hamburg, New York, south of Buffalo. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's right. Right up there by Lake Erie, up there. Hamburg's just like right on the coast of Lake Erie, south of Buffalo. It's just about 9 or 10 miles from Buffalo.
Well, I know you didn't end up staying there, and we'll get to that, but what was life in Hamburg like when you were living there? Or more specifically, what kind of music do you remember hearing while you were growing up there?
Well, I have two big sisters, and they were 50s rock and rollers,
Mhm.
So they were old. They were born in the 40s, and so they took care of me a lot when I was a kid, baby, and they were constantly listening to Fats Domino and Link Ray and
Nice.
Chuck Berry, Elvis, and all that, all that kind of stuff in the house, So we had Everly Brothers and a lot of different things like that in the house. My family listened to a lot of music. My mother was really into Frank Sinatra. She loved Nat King Cole and Mahalia Jackson.
Yeah.
And, they listened to big bands. My dad liked that kind of stuff more. So there was a lot of that kind of music around. And then I had a couple of uncles. I guess, I don't know if they're cousins or uncles. I guess they're like second cousins or something. We called them uncle. And but they were guitar players, and they played kind of hillbilly music, really. And, they played Jimmy Rogers songs and kind of bawdy, honky-tonk things. And they would come over to the house sometimes and play guitar a little bit. And the kids would sometimes get sent out of the room because they had off-color lyrics and stuff like that. But but that was fun, And there weren't a million guitar players back then. There were just a few, and it was sort of everybody back then seemed to have a hobby. Like if you weren't keeping bees or on shortwave radio, you could be playing guitar or. There was all sorts of different things going on. But so I tried different kinds of music, when I was a kid. I learned how to play piano a little bit as a little guy. And then I just wanted to play baseball. So I wanted to quit playing piano, but I learned some stuff on it. And then I started playing saxophone in the school band. It was fun. I did it with my friends. That was like in right before the Beatles came out. And then when the Beatles came out, like I lost interest in saxophone. I just wanted to play guitar. I already knew about all those other 50s guitar players, but all of a sudden, like, I just really wanted to play guitar. And my sister was also into Joan Baez, and she'd come home from college with Bob Dylan and Joan Baez and stuff like that. So that's what back then, like before the Beatles, the music you would hear is everything from the Kingston Trio and all those people I just mentioned that we listened to in my family. And then there was, I loved records like Johnny Horton and stuff like that, like Dion, was a big favorite of mine when I was just a little kid, 8 or 9, before the Beatles, and especially the Kingston Trio, which I thought were great. And so that's what it was. I grew up on all kinds of music. We had classical music in the house too, so just all kinds of music, really.
It sounds very similar when you talk about all the variety. It's very, very similar to what I was hearing from various members of like my parents and my family. And it's funny, my Uncle Joe had some of those Oscar Brand, bawdy songs and backroom ballads, which, we discovered those, even though I don't think we were supposed to be listening to them. So.
Right. Yeah, I never saw their records, but I definitely saw heard these guys play them, they're Ernie Skinner and Uncle Paul Cotton, and they would come over with these guitars and play,
It's funny. Well, in addition to music, I've heard you say that you came from a family of storytellers, which is something you became known for. Were a lot of storytellers in the family?
Well, yeah, nobody ever really called it that, but that's what it was. It wasn't the storytelling lifestyle so much as they just talked a lot and told stories about stuff that happened in the family. So my mother's family especially. My father's family was a little more closed, verbally. My mother's family, the Reynolds family, they were very open to people like to, they were telling stories at the table and telling stories at the bar and telling stories, always talking about things that had happened. And so it was an interesting way to learn about the world. And I also learned about stories because I would see the stories sort of grow and mutate. And so it would sort of turn the heat up on certain aspects of them. It was interesting. Certain things seemed to happen just because they were stories, It was very interesting. Yeah.
Well, you were playing in rock bands while you were in your teens. Did you join existing bands or usually start your own or a little of both?
I started my own bands and then I joined some bands. So I started my own band. I guess I had a band. My first one was like when I first started writing songs was like in 65, and then, I always had, that was a little after school band. And then we kept on playing. So by the time I was by about 67, I think I played a few gigs. I played at a, Moose Lodge and Elks, and, that kind of stuff. And then Veterans of Foreign War, VFW posts. And I had bands that played at the school youth center and things like that, and we would play fire halls. They used to have dances in fire halls. So I played with groups that played for dancing, rock and roll dancing. The set in 65 and 66, was, beat music, and soul music. Like, you had to play Midnight Hour. You had to play Hold On, I'm Coming. And there was a local song in Buffalo called The Hump. You had to play that. And there was a dance that the girls did called The Hump, things like that. And so Mustang Sally and stuff like that. And so we started doing that material, and I started writing songs too and putting in some of my own interpretations of things. At one point, I did an interpretation of a Leadbelly song in one of my bands, and because I thought that would be cool. I was into electric music, but I was always as I became aware of guys of the country blues people, and I guess it was Bob Dylan that led me to it. The first Bob Dylan album, which I didn't have when it came out. The first one I got was like in 65, but I went back and got his first album, and it turned me on to a certain way of playing guitar and folk music that was really exciting, and a way of singing it, And so I pulled the strings on it, I call it, followed the trail back, and I got into Leadbelly, and it was hard to find those kind of records back then, but I found Mississippi John Hurt and Leadbelly at the local library, as well as Woody Guthrie's Dust Bowl Ballads. Somebody at the library over there in Hamburg was ordering like really great records, and they had the Alan Lomax Folk Songs of North America book, And so all those records contributed a lot to my understanding of music. And I started trying to play like Mississippi John Hurt. It took me a really long time to get that together at all. But I started, I guess probably by 70 was probably the first time I really started finger picking the guitar for real. I tried, but it took me quite a long time to figure it. So I was 16, I guess, 15 or 16 when I started doing it.
Yeah, I did that a lot too. Bands and artists I liked, as I started to discover who they were influenced by and who they liked or who they covered, I'd dig deeper, and I wanted to know more about, okay, all right, if they liked them, they must be great. So
yeah, that's the way to do it, man. That's the real art of like learning how to play music, is following the people you love and like not trying to be like them, but trying to see what they were trying to be like and see what they were trying to grasp. Yeah, I get that.
Exactly. Hey, I want to talk about Plug. Plug makes it easy for you to purchase the personal technology you need at 40 to 70% off retail pricing. What can you get from Plug? Certified pre-owned devices including iPhones, Androids, AirPods, Macs, smartwatches, accessories, and more. I originally didn't even want an Apple Watch, but I got one from Plug and I love it. I wear it every day. Your purchase is backed by their unmatched 1-year warranty and 30-day money-back guarantee. One more very cool thing, Plug is dedicated to helping reduce e-waste around the globe. To date, Plug has helped save over 1 million devices from reaching landfills, and they're looking to double that number by 2025. Link to Plug Tech from the show notes, and check out all the great deals and savings on certified pre-owned devices. Plug Electronics. Check it out. Well, what prompted you to head west and go to San Francisco during that period?
Well, I don't know. I wanted to get out of Buffalo. It was a blizzard, and I wasn't doing so good in Buffalo. I wanted to get away, you know. I guess I thought that maybe if I just got far enough away from Buffalo, everything would work out, and it kind of did for a while. It was great to be. I went west with a guitar and started playing on the street in California, and it was just a period of intense freedom for me. You know, it was great. You know, I was really happy during that period. I felt liberated. You know, I could just play and go wherever I wanted to, and I didn't pay rent anywhere, and I just wandered the streets and played music and followed people around that played good. And, you know, it was a lot of adventures, musical adventures mostly, but, you know, it was a wild period, and it was really great. I was 18 when I went out there.
I'm always envious of that because in the part of the Midwest where I grew up, I don't remember anyone performing on the streets, but I first experienced seeing people busking in London when I was 19, and down like in the tube stations.
Right.
I just thought that was amazing. It was like, I've never seen this. Why don't we do that? So, anyway.
I know. I thought it was cool too, you know. So yeah, they never did that back in Buffalo. I never saw anybody doing it in Buffalo, but out in California, we were doing it in San Francisco. Everybody was doing it. And there was a certain breed of people that were like going all around the world doing it. So they would do it in London, and then during the summer or during the winter, they would come to California, you know. And so there were different people you would meet that had been busking all over the world, you know.
Yeah.
But I did it all up and down the West Coast, all the way from Portland all the way down into Mexico.
Nice. Well, I haven't seen the entire film, but in the documentary Night Shift by Bert Evert, there's footage of you playing your songs. I have seen, there's like about a 10-minute scene I've seen on Vimeo or whatever. Very fascinating to see the young Peter Case, you know, kind of grainy black and white footage.
It's weird. Yeah, that when they made that, you know, like nobody could believe that somebody was making a film about. You're making a film about those guys? What are you doing that for? You know? And so, so it was funny, you know, that it kind of preserves a time too. You know, that was a very, you know, the way things look and the way people dressed.
Definitely.
And the way I played music, everything, you know, it was very interesting. Yeah, to me, but yeah, it's an interesting film, even if you don't know me, because it's the early 70s and you get to look at the world so clearly through it.
Right. Well, and then you formed and fronted the Nerves in the 70s.
Yeah, the Nerves. We got going. The real front guy, you know, me and Jack Lee and Paul Collins were the Nerves, and we all kind of fronted it. We all sang lead, but Jack was kind of like the senior member, in that he was a little older, and he'd written a lot of songs at that point. And so we, you know, it was a great period for me. I guess sometimes I describe my busking period as my lower education, and then the period with the Nerves is like my merchant marine years, you know, because we were like, you know, like it was like it was more organized than the busking period. You know, I actually lived somewhere, you know, 3 regular meals on a cot, and then supervised activities, you know, and you know, rehearsals and tours and gigs, and we were really ambitious, and we wanted to hit it big, you know, and we tried.
Yeah.
And the closest we got was Hanging on the Telephone by Blondie. You know, they took our song and had a big worldwide hit with it. But
right.
Yeah,
I heard that when I was, you know, in school in the 70s, well, in high school in the 70s, and I remember hearing that when it came out. And then, of course, a couple of years later when Blondie covered it. I guess the story is, I don't know what the, you know, actual, but the legend has it that Debbie Harry was playing a cassette of the Nerves in a cab, like in Tokyo or something, and then they decided, hey, I think we're going to cover this song. I think they really liked it a lot.
Yeah, they got the tape from Jeffrey Lee Pierce, who was a friend of mine,
Oh, nice.
And I'd met Jeffrey Lee Pierce at a party at Fast Freddy's house on the day of Charlie Parker's commemorating Charlie Parker's death. There was a party at, like a drink to the death of Charlie Parker thing and Jeffrey Lee was there, and we were hanging out playing guitar, and then I gave him a Nerve single. So I guess he taped it and gave it to Debbie and Chris, who took it around the world with him on this cassette of a bunch of things Jeffrey gave him. And I guess they were in a cab, and like somebody reacted to it over in Europe, in Japan. And they decided they were going to cut it. So they had a big record with that. By then, the band had already broken up. And, it was mind-boggling. At the time, that Blondie would have a hit with our song because we weren't really able to we were ahead of our time, I think. And though we opened shows for the Ramones and Mick DeVille and everybody, Devo and Peruba. We played on the road with all these people, but it was hard to get any. Greg Shaw was into it, and he gave us some money to cut a single and stuff, but really it was very difficult. Now, right now, the band has just signed a contract with Third Man Records.
Oh, wow, down in Nashville?
Yeah, and they're putting out a record in October, a 29-song Nerves, like the total Nerves, like the complete collection of the Nerves, everything from all the studio recordings, rehearsals,
nice.
Demos, live shots that haven't been released, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So it should be pretty interesting. And that's coming out. It's called 50th Anniversary, and it's coming out on the 50th anniversary of the EP.
That's great.
There's nothing left to bring me back today. Alright. Took a ride, I went downtown. The streets are empty, there was no one around. Different faces that we used to know, in all the places we used to go. I'm at the wrong end of your looking glass, trying to hold on to the hands of the past and you. And there was nothing left to bring me back. I'm a million miles away. A million miles away. I'm a million.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, quick reminder to check out Frets with DJ Fey on YouTube. Subscribe for free and you'll find extras like shorts and videos featuring live performances of Frets guests. Subscribing really does help keep the podcast going. And did I mention? It's free. Now, back to the show. Well, by the time you started the Plimsouls, you mentioned you guys were touring with the Nerves. You were touring and opening up for a lot of bands. And then A Million Miles Away was huge and was just one of several songs featured in Valley Girl. And of course, the band appears in the film too, which is fun. Very fun. Yeah.
By the time that movie really came out, I think the Nerves were pretty much over, or maybe just about over. But we recorded it kind of in the middle of the peak of the Million Miles Away period. Yeah, Million Miles, at every step, I kind of changed. To be in the Nerves, I took up the bass. I kind of changed my direction a bit in that I took up the bass and I just really wanted to learn how to be in a band, During the period of the Nerves, I really wasn't doing so much of the kind of solo guitar stuff that I used to do. I was just concentrating on trying to write songs and playing with a band. And I'd been writing songs since I was a kid, and I'd written a lot of songs, but it was a real minimal style that we used in the Nerves. It was melodic and minimal, and it taught me a lot about songwriting to try to, focus my writing into that band. And I did it. But the Nerves, we were good songwriters and singers, but we never had the live act that just. It made me when the Nerves broke up, what I wanted to do was put together a band that had the same kind of songwriting drive that the Nerves had, that kind of standard, but could blow the roof off a club, like with a live rock and roll show.
Right.
And that's what the Plimsouls became. And as I went along, I was letting more and more of my influences into the music. And so as I got to the, I would say the Nerves were really, people don't understand them. Like people, like when they hear the Nerves, they think it's like Beatles influence or something. But the big influences on the Nerves really were like Bacharach and Motown.
Yeah.
And the Beatles. And like we did like a real minimal version of those things, minimalistic. And then in the Plimsouls, I opened it up to, kind of more of the folk rock and kind of R&B also. And so the things I grew up on and loved, they were finding more of their way into it. And the band became a very powerful and popular, live act. We could really hold our own. And we toured all over the place and did that whole thing. But it remained kind of a regional thing. Like we were popular in California and we were popular in Texas, Atlanta, Detroit. We were just starting to get going in New York, but it was just like a long process. And somewhere in there, I'd started writing a different kind of song, and I was really getting, like, as I said, the process had started where I was letting more of what I loved into what I did. And I just sort of had this vision that I was going to do what I do now, which is the song, as a songwriter, just really pursue that. And I think a lot of that vision was from the people I saw when I was really young. I wanted to take what I'd learned from the Plimsouls and the Nerves and apply it to that kind of solo performance thing that I'd seen Lightning Hopkins and John Hammond Jr. and Arlo. And, I'd seen a lot of solo folk performers when I was a kid. And so I knew I definitely, I loved John Fahey and I loved
yeah, me too.
Music that was just like, in touch with its roots, but also really in touch with its heart, and that you could play. I don't know. It was just the kind of communication that maybe I didn't feel like I was doing anymore with the Plimsouls. I lost interest in that kind of, in making it big in rock and roll, I guess. And I was in rock bands for 10 years,
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, I was sitting there like returning really to this real centered kind of place where I would write the songs and sing them and play them on the guitar and put them across in a very, I don't know what to say, but yeah, that's where I was going,
Right.
I was inspired by it. It was kind of a vision, really, and I guess it led to, like, I was one of the first people that I think maybe I was the first person to do that, because from the rock band world, because I would go into radio stations and play live on the radio, and the people couldn't believe I was doing it. It was kind of mind-boggling to them that I would come in just with a guitar and do it. And my folk music stuff, it's got a lot of the Nerves kind of thing in it, melodic, and the rhythms and everything. A lot of them are. They're based on guitar playing, but they're based on like a kind of orchestration that you can do with a guitar, or like where you can play like the bass and the, like going back to Mance Lipscomb or something like that, where the bass or Mississippi John Hurt, where the whole thing is contained inside the guitar, like the whole orchestra, like the guitar is a band.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always tried to do. And as I grew up in it, I learned how to do it better and better,
Well, there was no way of telling on the first day in town how far it was from the Greyhound station to midnight. And all wise, you checked it to a room at the Intella Hotel, got used to the gloom and the smell and the thrill at the sight of old man lying in hot white. So you go up on Broadway where the sailors uproar, and the girls give themselves names like Lola, Estelle, and Nicole.
Hey, Dave, what's something you've been doing for 45 years?
I've been attempting to get better at playing guitar for at least 45 years. And what about you?
Well, I'm part of a team who's been selling music for 45 years. It's Euclid Records' 45th birthday!
Yay!
And our NOLA store is turning 15.
Any plans to celebrate?
Oh, yeah. All kinds of plans. A big party. Stay tuned to our socials for details.
I've been a Euclid Records customer since the late 90s.
Oh, thank you for your loyalty. Yeah, 45 years of serving music lovers across the globe because we have our own shipping department. New and used vinyl, CDs, and cassettes. We do special orders. We do whatever it takes to get music into the hands of music lovers everywhere.
You also buy vinyl, right?
Oh, yeah. We buy vinyl, also CDs and cassettes, for cash or trade. It's how we've amassed such a renowned collection, which you can shop 24/7 at euclidrecords.com. Wherever you are, Euclid Records is there.
Euclid Records is in St. Louis, New Orleans, and wherever you might be, 24/7 at euclidrecords.com.
Hi, this is Peter Case, and you're listening to Frets with DJ Fey.
In the 80s, I guess the late 80s, you released your great self-titled solo album produced by T-Bone Burnett. T-Bone also co-wrote some of the songs with you, and that record featured an incredible lineup of musicians.
Yeah.
Jim Keltner,
Yeah.
Roger McGuinn, Van Dyke Parks.
Van Dyke, yeah, it was great playing with Van Dyke. T-Bone, that's who I wanted to work with. I said Van Dyke. And Roger, we had the idea of cutting one of Shane McGowan's songs with Van Dyke and Roger McGuinn, kind of like 5D they cut with Van Dyke and Roger McGuinn. So our vision of that was to sort of, do that, take a song and like folk rock it, which we did. And it's a beautiful, it was great playing with Roger. He had just like the greatest guitar part on that song. It was so beautiful. And there was a lot of people on there, Jerry Sheff and Fred Tackett from Little Feat plays on there. And, it was a great experience making that record. Campbell's on there, Mike Campbell from Tom Petty.
Yeah.
It was an exciting record to make. And then it's also just got some of my really completely solo stuff, like I'm talking about, like Walk in the Woods, and Small Town Spree and stuff like that.
All right. I saw T-Bone years ago. I'm trying to remember now what year it would have been. And it was at the Wiltern in L.A., but it was Sam Phillips, who he was with, I guess, at the time. She opened for Elvis Costello. And so T-Bone was part of her band, and then he was also part of Elvis Costello's band at that night. It was a great night.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, cool.
Many years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when T-Bone was doing that, yeah. That's like around the early 90s.
That would have been right, that's right. Well, since that first solo record, you've released a lot of great albums over the years. I love that you've been consistently putting out great stuff. There really wasn't any long stretch of time when you weren't writing and performing. It seemed like there were albums coming out pretty often, which is great.
Pretty regular, yeah, every 3 years.
Yeah.
For a while there, I was doing them every 2 years, and now it's like a little more spaced out. But I'm always on the road. I'm always doing something. So there's a lot of different projects and stuff that I've been doing. And when I didn't do a Plimsouls thing, I also did put out when I didn't do a solo thing, I also did a Plimsouls record in the 90s.
That's right.
I like. Yeah. So there's just been a lot of work. I try to just keep working. I just like creating the music. It's what I do.
I loved Highway 62, very bluesy and cool. I listen to that one in my car a lot.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best ones. I really like that one a lot too. Yeah, they play a lot of those songs still live, and that was a great experience recording that and writing it and everything. Yeah, I'm fond of that one. Maybe my best one. I like that one a lot. I like this new one. My favorite one is the new one because it's like just what I do live and with me in the audience. And I get to, Len Fico from the record company wanted to put out a live album. It was his idea, like, because he saw me at McCabe's. He said, well, let's go back to McCabe's. You do a live album and I'll put you on and we'll have a lot of the talk too. I'm really, okay, whatever, so we'll do a 2-record set, he said. So I said, all right, let's do it.
It's very fun.
I'm proud.
It's great.
Yeah,
it's a great album.
Yeah, I'm proud of that record. Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, because I'm proud of that one. And I like the music on it and the thing. It's done, recorded over 2 nights, then we had to cut it down to like enough for 2 albums.
Bare feet slapping on a pine wood floor. Dump a rush of desert flowers side the door. Her music box is pretty with the piebald stripes. Dust more diamonds in a shaft of light. Come on down, ain't gonna worry no more. Oh, come on down, we ain't gonna worry no more. 'Cause everybody's laughing now, it won't be long. We've seen a lot of trouble, now the ghost is gone. Come on down, we ain't gonna worry no more. We ain't gonna worry no more.
Well, the new album, My Life to Live, Peter Case at McCabe's, comes out April 24th. I was fortunate to hear it in advance of the release, and it's really, really nice and very fun. Like I said earlier, you're a great storyteller, and the album is really, it's a fun album to listen to, and a lot of great tracks on it, and just fun to hear, the audience, responding. It's really great.
Cool. Thanks. I'm proud of this record, man.
And I love McCabe's. Whenever I'm out in LA, I always make it a point to try and hit the shops.
Yeah. I love McCabe's. It's sort of my musical home, It was where I played my first solo show after the Plimsouls in January '84, I think it was, and ever since then I've played there. They'd say I've probably played there more than anybody else, but it really is kind of my musical home. I've got a lot of musical homes now, but that's the place that where it all kind of began for me as a solo performer. It's always great going in there, and it sounds good in there, and there's a great vibe. I've seen a lot of great musicians in there. Like I say on the record, it's an inspiring place. Where I've seen everybody from Townes Van Zandt to Memphis Slim. It's a place I was really happy to record.
Yeah. Well, a lot happening with you with the album coming out, and you've been doing a lot of live performances this month and next. I think you're playing one back in Buffalo, I think.
Yeah, I'll be back in Buffalo in a couple of weeks. I've been playing. I've been touring a lot. Starting in October, I did a tour. We did a 2-part tour of Europe. So in October, November, we did Spain, Spain, Italy, and some of France. And then just a few weeks ago, I got back from doing a 3-week tour of England and Sweden and the Low Countries over there. So the European, that was like a whole European tour that went on for quite a while there. And so right before that, I was touring the States, and now I'm touring the States again. So I'm pretty much staying on the road as much as possible. My theory is sort of like, keep working while I can. I feel good, and the music's sounding good, so I just keep going with it.
Well, Peter Case, you're great, and this has been a lot of fun. I thank you for this.
All right, David. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate your interest in your show, man. So keep me posted, and good luck with everything, man.
All right. Safe travels.
All right, man. Yeah, good talking to you.
Thanks, Peter.
Later on, man.
I was a kid out behind the fair. His words were like lightning in the summer air. His eyes were wild with the truth he told, holding back the rain while the thunder rolled. Too young not to understand, I was proud. I shook his head. Took command on a winter's day, and all across the land spring was on its way. He struck fear into the hearts of fools, wrecking up the...
Did you dig this chat? Then check out past episodes. Please subscribe, tell 2 friends, and follow Frets on Instagram and YouTube. And leave a glowing review wherever you're hearing this episode.